Welcome everybody. Glad you could join us tonight for the first announcement of our Willows at Watson webinar. We're very excited about this opportunity that we have to share. We've had a couple of different sources reach out to those of you that are attending tonight, and for those that will be watching the recording. First of all, we have the Willows at Watson team, which we have present on the webinar here tonight, who will be doing most of the development for this project, and also South Silver Group is a co-sponsor with the Willows team. We also have reached out to those of you that might have formerly been attached to my engineers in real estate. That now has been absorbed into South Silver Group, and you'll be seeing future communications from South Silver Group now going forward. We have some slides to share here, so I will go ahead and share those now. Let's see if I can hit there. Go. All right, everybody see that all right? Let me
Yes.
do the first slide. All right, there we are. All right, I know that we're going to have a few different types of investors here tonight. Some of you might be attending or listening simply because you want to get educated on how to participate in syndications, and we welcome your participation. We're glad to have you looking forward to what might be ahead for you. We also have some seasoned investors who have already invested with myself or with others of the Willows team, and we're also looking here for people that we may not have even met yet, because we're providing this as an accredited investor opportunity, which means we're allowed to advertise to the public. So we'll get into more of what that means later, but we welcome everybody to be able to listen and hear what we have to share here tonight. So tonight we're announcing and presenting the Willows at Watson RV Park and Resort. It already includes a component that has an operating and cash flowing RV park. We're excited to tell you about how we're going to turn this into a A-class type resort and opportunity. We'll have the team go through that here in a little bit, but here's our quick agenda. We're going to meet the team. We'll talk about our vision, some of the market research that we have and the investment details, and have an opportunity for Q&A. Of course, we have to present our confidentiality and disclaimers. Material in this presentation is not an official offering that comes from specific documents itself. We're not offering securities for sale. You have to contact us and we have to vet you, and that we just have to follow the SEC rules. And so both South Silver Group and the Tri-Water Capital Group, which are combining to form the Willows at Watson, are encourage you to ask questions and do your own due diligence. These slides will be made available to you at a later time as well, shortly after the presentation. Also, we're not attorneys, CPAs, or financial advisors. We can only get into generalities in our talk here tonight. We will be presenting some numbers, but it's also on the investor's responsibility to do their own due diligence and make sure that this deal works for them, works for you personally. And you may need to seek some of your own tax advice and legal advice to make sure that's the case. So the general financial information, as I mentioned, is just forecasts, it's projections, it's predictive. It has some risks associated with it. We're doing the best we can to present this in a good faith setting. And we know that the performance results may differ from those that we may present. All investing has some risk. We try to do our best to make sure that we minimize that and make you aware of it before you make an investment as best we can. So I'd like to take a moment to go around the room. Start with Coy. You're going to be one of our main developers on this, so why don't you pipe in there and tell us a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. So my name is Coy Greathouse. I am the son of Michael Greathouse, who you'll meet momentarily. Been in the construction business for a long time. I graduated from Abilene Christian University and went into a ministry field and did that for several years and transitioned into construction direction, and flipped houses and acquired hundreds of properties over the course of a couple of years. And ended up moving out to the Metroplex, where I started working for a few different construction companies, namely Renowned Construction, doing remodel and restoration. And then I worked for David Weekley Homes as a superintendent, and currently am jumping in with Provender Homes. Again, you'll meet the counterpart to myself here in just a moment with Provender, but I'm doing some general construction, remodels, and new construction with Provender. Was a very integral part in the Mountain View RV Park construction. When I say integral, I mean I was very hands-on to the point of digging trenches and laying pipe, and a lot of the backbreaking labor, specifically so that I could get a really good feel for what that is going to entail. And the last point there, I'm a Tolkien enthusiast. I love Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, which as this you'll see from our just general overview of the property, it lends itself to some really cool concepts. So looking forward to seeing some of those flesh out.
Coy, Michael?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. Michael Greathouse. I am also working on the project, and I've been in the trenches with Coy as well over the past several months that we've been working together on this project. But it all kind of began when I retired from UPS after 20 years, and just decided I didn't want to sit around the house. So we traveled, and got a chance to see a lot of what's going on in the world of RVs, which we'll get into a little bit more of that here in a little bit. But overall, it was an exciting adventure, and I basically took some notes while we were traveling, and just really fell in love with the people and the opportunity to travel and see this great country. And so it's kind of come out of that, and that's a little bit about what we were focused on when we tried to find the right property to be able to do this. And it was one of those things that you just kind of fall into it, and you kind of see opportunities and where men going. And as a result of being an employee of UPS, and some of the training that I had in that just helped me to be able to understand a little bit more about how to create a successful business. And so, Coy and I and the rest of the team joined forces, and we just taken it from there. And it's been an exciting project.
Thank you, Michael. I know you're also a seasoned investor. You're in several of my own deals, and appreciate that.
Yes, sir. That's right. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Cody could not join us this evening, but he also has many years of experience as a leader in electric power and natural gas energy management companies, and been in real estate for a long time. Maybe, Coy, maybe you can pipe in, maybe you know a little bit more you'd like to go ahead and add there, or just let the slide talk to it.
Well, he and I have a pretty substantial background. He was involved with quite a few of my real estate transactions back when I was getting started, and so we've been working together for more than 10 years on different projects. But that's a sliver of the things that he has been a participant in. Has quite a bit of investment experiences across the board, from commercial real estate to recreational and oil field, all sorts of stuff. So he is quite a vast wealth of knowledge. So we're glad to have him.
Well, thank you. All right. For myself personally, I'm fund manager of an Opportunity Zone fund. I'm actually also a general partner in several other commercial type properties, been a GP in many things. I'm coordinator mostly of the back office things, getting things organized. I have 40 years of project management experience and working for defense contractors and the like. So I've been a software lead, integration lead. And so I'm kind of the guy that herds cats and gets things done. So that's what I like to do. Christian?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity recently to participate with Coy at Provender Homes and be involved in some fun projects in this kind of interesting residential market we have in West Fort Worth. And before that, I was littered with the opportunity to really build some fun and interesting, creative homes of different scope, as well as participate on some commercial projects in development of several residential communities and homes in those communities. And I'm just blessed and lucky to be a part of the scope of this opportunity to build out such a unique product.
Thank you very much. We also have with us tonight Rebecca Personius. She is my daughter-in-law and been my right-hand support, making sure that we can get to where we are today. So she is also heavily involved with investor relations and will help tremendously to help guide you through the investment process, should this be a good opportunity for you and the right thing. So I appreciate her being here with us. All right, Coy, why don't you take us a little bit through, you and Michael, take us a little bit through the deal itself.
Yeah, I'd like to pass over to Michael just briefly. He sort of alluded to some of the things just that led us towards the RV park and recreational real estate direction in the first place. So I guess the question I would ask is, when you took off across the country to experience some time on the road, you made a list by the end of your time. I mean, give us a couple of stats as far as the scope of the things that you saw. How many parks did you stay at? How long were you on the road? What were some of the ups and downs? And maybe give us a couple of the key points that you were looking for when you decided you wanted to build your own RV park and campground, and maybe a couple of things that you wanted to avoid. You'll need to unmute.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, it was really kind of one of those things that just happened over a few months. We actually started traveling. My wife Debbie and I, once I retired, there was a lot of people who I worked with who did the same thing, and we started going out and just staying at some local RV parks, and really enjoyed it. We stayed at some really nice ones. I think the very first one that we really stayed at was out in San Antonio, and that one was not very impressive. I was thinking, oh boy, this is not. It was lackluster. It was a nice, clean place, but there was a lot of things that I really would have liked to have seen different. And then we stayed in a Grapevine. That was the second place that we stayed. Then we started our journey a little bit deeper waters, started heading out west, stayed in Paladera Canyon, and then went to New Mexico, several places out there, and just journeyed to California, and then went up the coast from there. And I started taking notes of the things that I would have liked to have seen, the things that I didn't like, and really didn't have a plan for that. But as time went on, we got more enamored with the idea of RV life, and met several other RVers and had a chance to talk to them. It just seemed like a trend, and since then we found out that it's more than a trend. It's just a culture. There's a whole lot of depth to it, and most RVers are really looking for something interesting, someplace that they can go and stay and see some sights. And when we started looking to develop this property just kind of fell into it and fit all of the components that what I felt like I was getting feedback from, and from my own observation, I believe that it had everything plus some to offer. And so that's what's so exciting about this, is it's just got everything. It's not one of those things where you go and camp out by a railroad track, where you hear the trains coming by, or I-20, which is a lot of the times that's the way that it is. It's a peaceful place. it's a happening place. There's so much going on around this property that is just so exciting. And so that's why we fell in love with this property, and it's brought us to this point.
Yeah, so there's really two schools of thought when it comes to the RV market and what to build. There's sort of a homestead type of a model where people will come in and park there and they're staying there for a year, sometimes more, sometimes several years, or they're planning to stay there and never leave. And it's just a simple way to live. And it's relatively inexpensive. And then there's the other side, which is more of the transient explorers, folks that are going out and wanting to see nature and experience different things. And both schools of thought have validity. They have a place. We are focusing sort of, if you had scale of 1 to 100, and 1 is the homesteaders and 100 is the transient folks. We're somewhere around that, maybe 70% transient. We're aiming for that more of the explorer, more of the nature centered dynamic. But we do have quite a few folks that to this point have stayed in the park for over a year. Have several that have done that, several that are several months. We have some monthly guests, so we do a mix of both. But really, we wanted to primarily find a property. We looked in New Mexico, we looked in several places, and landed on this one because of its proximity to some really special vacation spots, namely Hochatown and Broken Bow. If anybody's been down that way, a lot of North Texas and sort of central Oklahoma and western Arkansas all tend to find their way down into to that area. So really wanted to give an opportunity for people to experience the beauty of the nature out there, but also have some really cool features that give you a reason to stay on our property. So you'll notice here we've got four different pictures, 4 different directions that we are planning to take this project. So the first one is the RV park. That's not a picture of our RV park. It's just an example. But we do have a mountain view in the back. So you can go to our website, you go to our Instagram, and you can see some additional pictures there. So that was kind of our starting point. But we have this beautiful property, and it lends itself to so many different things. But really notice there was a substantial need for a couple of specific things in that market. Wedding venues is a big deal. A lot of folks go out there and they want to spend a week or 2 weeks out there. There actually are plenty of people that go and have their wedding out in Hochatown and Broken Bow, which is about 30 minutes from us to the center of the action there. And the actual options for weddings are very slim. People are having to get really creative. And so for us to install something that is intentional, that has direction, that has it's a good advertising structure where we're going to get the word out, and it's going to be something that captures the mountains, but also gives folks a specific reason to come out here. That's a great hole that needs to be filled in that market. The other is glamping and camping. I don't know if you're familiar with the term glamping, but it's a glamorous campground. It's something that's an elevated experience beyond what I grew up doing, which was just pitching a tent on some dirt. And whether it's hot or cold, you get to just stick it out in that. There is a lot of value in that. But as I'm getting older, I do find a need to get on some level ground, and maybe something that's a little bit more air conditioned, that's a little bit less inundated with bugs and those sort of things. So we've got a really special area of the park dedicated to the glamping project design components, and excited about that. Another thing that Hochatown and Broken Bow are really known for are short-term rentals. There are thousands of cabins, which is a great draw. All different parts of. We'll get into some statistics here in a couple of slides of the areas and the tourism that comes to our area just to stay in these really luxurious cabins. And so we are going to take advantage of that part of the market as well, and build something that's not just white noise, that's very unique, and that allows folks another option to stay on our property. That was a little long-winded. Hope that's helpful.
Jay, you're muted, just FYI.
Yeah, we have to unmute there now. So we've talked about a couple of these things, but one of the things that I find really unique about this park is your interest to put in a Hobbit Shires. Tell us a little bit about that and how unique that is.
Yeah. So as a Tolkien enthusiast, I've grown up watching all the films. My wife has read all the books and she fills in all the gaps for me. But this property is beautiful, rolling green hills. It's really picturesque. Has this beautiful pond in the middle of it. Again, we'll see some overviews on the next slide where I can dive in a little bit more of a detail picture of that. But these subterranean, underground or half underground hobbit holes are really, really unique. It's something that's straight out of the movies. And we have an opportunity, an area that's just perfect for that. And so between Christian and myself, we're going to be working on the design elements to get those not just structural. It is a structural undertaking, an architectural undertaking. We're excited about that creative element, but also offering something that's really unique to this area that has a lot of options for short-term rentals. Something that is totally elevated, that's completely different, that offers just a really special, memorable stay. Very, very excited. They'll literally be that picture, the second picture there with the round yellow door. It'll be similar to that with an earthen kind of roof to it. It's built into the side of a hill, and about 60% of it will be underground, or at least it will appear to be underground. So very excited about that.
It's also very few people who do this at the moment. And we're going to be looking to have an engineer who's a specialist in this field to help us out. So,
but on that note, there are a handful of these. So you can go to New Zealand and you can actually go and see, and Christian has been there. So he has some pretty hands-on experience with going to the real life New Zealand Hobbit Shire. Why don't you want to fill in any gaps? I see you.
Yeah, it's just super unique. It provides cool opportunities, and from a building perspective for folks that are interested in geothermal benefits of being underground, and a lot of really, it'll be an attraction, certainly.
Yeah, it'll demand some pretty high margins too. So we're looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few in the States, and I think there's one in Mexico, but they're spread out all over the place. There's nothing anywhere near us. And the ones that are out there they're a little bit kitschy. They're not quite to the level of replica that we're looking to install out there.
Absolutely. The backgrounds that we have behind myself and Rebecca, when you look at the participants there, and including Michael's, are all pictures from the property. So let's transition now to an overview. You can't quite see the three-dimensional aspect here, but Coy, take us through the layout and how we have this plan.
Yeah, if you start on the left side, you can kind of see it's color coordinated there. On the left side is the acreage that we've dedicated for the RV park. You can go see an overview on Google Maps if you're going to go look at the satellite image there that has and I think I actually might even have it in a later slide. But either way, you can go look at that. The orange area right next to the pond, that's incredibly hilly. Some of those hills are 12, 15 feet high, and just have a really cool road that just weaves through them. And that's the general area that we'll be building those Hobbit holes. The green area on the bottom center is our glamping campground area. All those trees, the lines of trees represent what we call in southeastern Oklahoma a draw. You got to say it with a little bit of twang. But those are all the natural formed water. I guess water.
We call it a ditch.
Well, it would be. It's a ditch if it's if it's, I don't know, it's if it's more flat. But these have substantial elevation change from top to bottom. But it's the collection point for all the rainwater that comes through there. And what's really unique is when it does rain, those things will actually turn into what we know as a wet spring. And it will, or a dry spring rather. It's a dry spring. So when it gets wet, it'll fill up the bedrock, and it'll turn into a waterfall, a functional waterfall creek for about 2 weeks every time it rains pretty good. So very, very cool feature. And we're looking to make that actually more consistent with some water collection and rerouting and those sort of things. So it'll be more of a water feature. If moving over to the right, the blue area is the general area for the wedding venue. That has some really picturesque views from the top of the kind of dead center of that square or shape. Is some really high points that give you just about 180-degree view of the Kiamichi Mountain Trail to the north. So very special, and we've allowed some area in that top right section it's not dedicated to anything specific. We do want to keep some area that's relatively underdeveloped, just for the sake of maybe having some wildflower fields or nature viewing areas, those sort of things. But we're going to allocate that to more of just general naturescape and not so much development.
Yeah, we've talked possibilities of a few different things, including maybe even a wine grape vineyard and that kind of thing. TBD, but that's not a requirement at the moment. Also in these draws, you've talked about having bridges and different decorative things through the trees, make it a little more fun. I think you've also mentioned having pools and things available for the RV park, right?
Yeah. So over
Yes.
the RV park, I think we've got, again, a little bit more detail, or I can go into more detail in a slide here in just a minute.
Okay. Yeah, when we get to the different phases. Also, there's you can't see it here because this is the actual lake outline at the moment, but the plan is to also raise the lake level about 5 feet and double the size of this lake. So just make a much more consistent area. All right, let's talk about our investment thesis here. Boy?
Yeah, so we've got several markets that we're pulling from specifically. We are in that very southeastern corner of Oklahoma. So we pull a lot of our visitors from these major metropolitan areas. So the Dallas-Fort Worth market is really, really big. Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Little Rock, and even Shreveport, Louisiana. We actually get quite a few folks coming from that northern part of Louisiana, which is not something that I had anticipated, but we really do. We want to install a luxury RV resort, which is greatly missing out there in Hochatown. There are RV parks, but most of them are mom and pop spots. They're nothing more than it's kind of a bed of pine needles and maybe some electric hookups and water hookups. Almost none of them have septic. They're all 10 to 15, maybe 20 sites at the very most. And then they're in competition with the state park, which the state park is great. It's really pretty. There's a lot of sites there, but the sites are all really hard to get in and out of. They're underdeveloped from a hookup standpoint. A lot of them only have 30 amp service, or they don't have septic. So we want to have something that's all inclusive, that falls more in line with an RV resort and not just an RV park. So we also are looking to install these short-term rental accommodations that are unique and not white noise. We don't want your everyday cabin, which even the everyday cabins in Hochatown are really pretty, but we want to take it to the next level. And again, the indoor-outdoor wedding event center and the glamping experience. Those things are all huge value adds to the area. And they're not. We're not reinventing the wheel here. These are going to be things that we are going to be separate and apart in that market.
Yeah, so we don't want to fail to mention also that we have had the land appraised, and it definitely has done more than a 2x valuation in just 2.5 years. So, in fact, the appraisal was earlier this year, so it was just a 2-year time frame, and it doubled already. So we know that this is a hot piece of land. So, all right, why don't you take us through the different phases here a little bit? So I might just preface this for a moment that we do have a pro forma that lays out all of our costs and our expenses and our revenue projections and everything else for this. We've spent a lot of time working through this, and we're being very conservative in what we're estimating here. You've heard that probably in every investment, that for us, we definitely have been very, very careful on what we want to project here, because there this is a development project. And while there are no permits required that are going to slow us down and that kind of thing in this space, we are not going to be cheap on the quality of what we do here. We expect this to be a many decade lasting park. We plan to hopefully sell it in 7, 5 years, whatever it turns out to be the good opportunity. And so we are not going to be cheap on cutting corners here, but we have budgeted good quality in everything that we do here. So Coy, take us through the 4-phase development.
Absolutely. So phase one is going to be a project-wide infrastructure. So we really are intentional about how we implement this whole project. We don't want to, get part of it done, get some cabins done and have right next door be, us digging up trenches to lay the stuff for the next area. So the phase one is going to be trying to get 90% of the infrastructure, the water, the electric, all of those things installed prior to building out some of those different areas. That way, it's just the least impact to the overall revenue. We'd really like people to be excited about coming out there and not ever get a review saying I had to look at a bulldozer for 3 days while I was there. So that's what we're doing in phase one. RV park upgrades. Right now, we are a 59 site RV park. They all have water, electric, and septic, except for 3 sites that lack the septic. Just they're off in a corner. We needed those sites for the sake of the area. It's really, really pretty. It just didn't work to add it into the septic, but everything else is full surface hookups. But we're going to add some greenery, some trees. We're going to add pickleball courts. Have a great guy that's going to come in and build those pickleball courts for us under a pavilion, so they're shaded, can be used year round. Installing a couple of pools. We're looking at an option if you're interested in a plungy. We're looking at a few options for a plungy. It's a very, very smart pool, heated and cooled, and Christian has a really great resource there for that. Very easy to install, very quick, and very easy to service. We are going to be building a lodge, which we'll look at a picture on the next slide, I believe, where that will be going in there. And I'll speak to that in just a moment. We're going to be building our first 4 cabins. They're the 4 cabins that are going to be on what we call the spine of the dolphin. So if you're looking on the satellite image, you'll see the pond looks like a dolphin. So those 4 little red dots right there on the top are our first 4 cabins. They're going to be a little bit more of a modern, we're calling them sunset and sunrise cabins. They'll be turned slightly to the east or to the west to give it a sunrise or a sunset view from up there. And then we're going to install the Tolkien Shire replica. So our goal there is to get something that is incredibly unique, something that we can really get a good jump start on with our marketing. And we really feel strongly that the Tolkien Shire replica is going to help us get there. So Jay, if you want to go to the next slide for me.
Let me just type in here for a second. The reason for these phases is couple-fold. One is we want to not overreach in the development too soon before we have revenue that can back up what we're doing. You never know, there might be an opportunity that someone comes along and wants to buy it as is and offers us a great deal. But having revenue that can be generated immediately is the top priority. And that makes it a lot more sellable in case there's a change economically. The other thing is just we want to be able to focus on something and get it done. As an agile coach, the big thing that makes software really get delivered and projects get done is that you actually finish something before you start everything. So that's really the thinking behind this, and we want to make sure that we mitigate as much of the risk as we can and leave this, have this in a state at any time that it could be sold if that's the right thing to do. So yeah, let me go to the next one here. So phase 1A.
Perfect. So you'll see on kind of the north side of, if you're looking at this, the orientation is north is up. The north side of the RV park, we will have the pickleball courts over there, pretty close to the bulk of our sites. Up at the top, we do have a bathroom laundry facility. That's the red square. That is already built out and is functioning and serviceable and usable by our patrons. And we're thinking that either right there, we'll build that pool up there in conjunction with that, so you have the mountain view, or we may include that down with the pickleball courts. It's a little bit up in the air, but both of those are options. We'd love to install a great playground for some kiddos to be able to go play, really make it a family-friendly spot. Down on the bottom of the screen, you'll see we're going to reroute the entrance of the park down to that area there where the arrow's pointing, and the current entrance right by that red square will be the exit point whenever you're heading out of the park. But the idea there is that we will have a center, a focused area where people will come in and to our welcome center. They'll check in, and then they'll drive across that tree line into the park. A little bit easier flow in and out, a little more manageable, and gives folks a good hub to come and ask questions, or we'll have a little bit of a rec center in there. People can come and hang out and play pool or use the restroom facilities, things like that over there, watch the ball game, whatever they like to do. It's a great spot for that. Right behind that STR, short-term rental, we do have an existing building there that we're going to be remodeling and turning into more of a motel style accommodation. So if you do have family that comes in, and maybe you have 10 people and you don't want to try to cram them all in one RV, but that's all you have, we will have some additional spots for folks to stay if they want to come and travel with their family but don't have an RV. So that's one of the many short-term rental. Obviously, lots of opportunities for there, but that's one more easy spot for us to include some more value.
Yeah, the second part of phase one then.
Yeah, so this is generally speaking where our Shire is going to be. This is subject to change a little bit, but not too drastically. That area is just picturesque. It's beautiful, rolling hills, and that'll be the general layout. I do have some water and some electricity mapped out as far as where that's going to be, how the infrastructure is going to lay out. But the 4 on the right over there, again, generally speaking, are where those first 4 cabins are going to go. So that represents 8 different units, and we should be able to build those out relatively quickly and get them operational. And then they will be relatively secluded and available without having to be impeded by any additional construction.
Very good. All right, phase 2.
All right, phase 2 is going to be part 1 or phase 1 of the glamping campground, and then 5 additional cabins. So if we go to the next slide, you can kind of see where those are going to sit. So we've got phase 1 is the kind of fleshed out version of that. That parking lot is enormous. It doesn't necessarily represent how many cars we're going to fit in there. But that will be the general parking area. And then we'll have 8 dry cabins, 17 tent platforms. Again, this is relatively subject to change depending on what the market demands. So we're going to build into this relatively carefully, just that way we don't overbuild for what folks are going to need. But we do have phase 2 and phase 3 available to mix and match and add on, just kind of Lego style, just add on a little bit here and a little bit there and not have to duplicate all of our infrastructure.
Yeah, so I might just add for clarity here, we have 4 phases to the project. Within those projects, we have A and B phases, but within each kind of venue, it also has different phases. So hopefully we won't confuse you too much on that, but we do have those different things that we've been considering. If you have any questions, just reach out to us.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying there. All right, phase 2B is those 5 additional cabins. We're looking to install 3 smaller cabins that are 2-bedroom, 2-bath. They sleep up to 10 people. So what those are going to look like is they're 2 master suites, 2 full master suites with a bunk room. So you can put 2 adults in each bedroom and then have 6 kids stay up in the bunk room somehow. And then 1 specialty, very high finish, what we would consider a honeymoon suite. It's the one that's at the top of those 5, the northernmost cabin there, and that one is what I'm referring to as the Eagle's Nest. It's got a great view. We do have bald eagles that come out there seasonally, and so it's just a great opportunity to capture that view. And we'd like to install 1 larger cabin that's a multi-family sleeper, 4-bedroom, 4-bath, generally speaking, 2,500 square feet, and it has several bunk rooms and hosts quite a few people. So we want to cover the gambit. We want to be able to accommodate lots of folks that come into town, but this will primarily be marketed towards the wedding venue, which we will see in the next phase. So phase 3 is our wedding venues. We'll also incorporate phase 2 of the glamping campground potentially, but phase 3 is really dedicated more towards the wedding venue build out. That's the primary focus. So along with those cabins, we're going to be building three primary wedding venues. One is an outdoor venue, one is an indoor venue and reception hall, and then one is going to be an outdoor pavilion. So the outdoor, we'll start with number 1. That's perfect. So that is our wedding reception hall that will double as a bad weather wedding area. So that beautiful barn you can see kind of in that picture of number 1, that's sort of the general vibe that we're going for. More of a rustic barn look, very functional building. Number 2 is an outdoor dedicated venue. It's down in one of those draws. It's a beautiful, beautiful draw down in the trees, right along one of those creek beds. And that's a very small, intimate wedding venue. We're calling that Donna's Beck. Number 3 is the Mountain View, the Vista Pavilion. That's going to be a primarily outdoor, but kind of a flex space with some conditioning available there, and being able to pull down some screens and things like that to make it a little bit more just manageable as far as the weather is concerned. But the goal here is to really capture that view and have that be an amazing place to host an outdoor reception if weather permits. And then number 4 is our dedicated outdoor large party wedding venue, Chapel Alpenglow. And real quick, if you don't know what Alpenglow is, you can go look it up. It's when the mountains in the background in the view turn a pinkish hue, which we get often out there during the sunset. Specifically, the mountains will turn a really beautiful shade of pink. So that's what they call the Alpenglow. So that's what we're looking to install in our wedding venues, and very excited about that.
All right, excellent. So let's talk a little bit about the RV data. Where's the market going, and why is this a great opportunity, et cetera? Give us a little background.
Sure. So,
and also what's special about our place here?
Yeah. So there was a big shift during COVID where a lot of folks became remote workers, and there are still a lot of people that do work remotely. And they've taken very intentional advantage of the fact that they can travel wherever they want as long as they have good Wi-Fi and reasonably close to general stores and things that they need. A lot of folks have taken advantage of that and are traveling for their jobs. So in our market research, we show that 34 to 36% of people kind of in that 20 to 40-year-old range are still out there traveling. So seeing some pretty major trends. And you can see in 2021, that's the highest where it peaked out. There were 600,000 units sold. Those are RV units sold that year. Substantial amount. And that's when everybody was getting out into the world and going and traveling the country. There are billions of dollars of RVs that were back ordered, and now they're out there in production and people need a place to use them. So there was an influx, a pretty substantial influx of smaller RV parks during that same time, just in general across the country. 2022 saw more of a standard level of RV sales, still very high, still well above the average. 2023, this year has been more of a standard lower year, but it's to be expected after a pretty high swing in RV sales, and it's projected to continue to move up. Even though there's some things fighting against that, they're still selling quite a few RVs, projecting to be sold in 2024. Our park specifically, we designed some things very intentionally. First of all, we have a lot of space, and so we try to use that space well. We want to make sure that our RVs have a really easy in, easy out. RVs are big and they're awkward. Sometimes folks have these guys that just went out and bought their first RV in 2021. they may not be the best RV drivers in the world. And so we want to make it as easy as possible. Want them to have a great experience. We want to have safety in mind. So we do have plans for a really good security system, but even more than that, just making sure that all of our spots are safe and people are not. Since we have a lot of topography, we've been very intentional about how we build these so that folks are comfortable driving around our park as well. With that in mind, the top 15 sites, which are at the south end of the property, they all have the mountain view. Very intentionally, we built it into the side of a hill because we wanted, and stadium seating to boot, we wanted those 15 sites to all have an ideal view of the Kiamichi mountain range. And when folks come up there and stay, Michael and myself, we can both attest, that's one of the things people love, is being able to be up there on what we call the terrace and get to see the mountains. We have also been very intentional about installing really, really good high-speed internet. Now, I could go into a long story there, but ultimately the Lord just kind of laid it out and said, here's your fiber line, and you guys get to tap into that. And we have AT&T high-speed fiber optic internet out there, and we've built a massive Wi-Fi grid that covers the majority of the park, of the RV park specifically, and it's really fantastic. So we've had a lot of folks excited about that. Have full utilities. Again, we're not just a 30 amp hookup and water. We have 30, 50, 20 amp. We have water at each one, and all but 3 have septic hookups. So very, very considerate for all those RV goers. We have a lot of nearby attractions in any direction. We've got stuff down south in Ho Chi Town, 20, 30 minutes away. We're pretty close to Diamond Crater State Park, not that far away. There's a lot of great attractions that are nearby. But we also want to have a place for on-site activities as well. So excited about that. We want to have not just all these great places to stay, but we want to have these activities where the folks all over the park and all over the ground can come and be a part of maybe a concert series, or maybe an open air trade day marketplace, or a Christmas village, or all sorts of things that we can do for the local area, depending on what we decide to do there. And also we have easy access to basic essentials. Mena, Arkansas is 25 minutes away. That's a full-blown town. They've got all of what you need, restaurants and Walmart and those sort of things. But we also have some basic essential stores that are within a couple of miles of us. So makes it pretty convenient from that standpoint.
All right. Tell us about the trends, market trends.
Yeah, so year over year, we have seen that Ho Chi Town is continuing to grow. Some of these statistics, I'll try to dive into that. Some of them are a little bit hard to see on the slide here, but what I'm wanting to show you here is that trends are going upwards. So when you see the gray lines, those are actually cabins. The gray lines on my graph here, those are cabins that are being built. And so year over year, there's more and more cabins being built and going live in the market. And then the kind of counterpart to that is the annual, or the average nightly rate, which is those are the numbers in the bottom right corner of the slide. Those are pretty consistent between 2021 and 2022 specifically. You see they took a pretty good jump from 2020 to 2021. So we are seeing a little bit of a slowdown, just as the market, interest rates and everything else. We're seeing a little bit of a slowdown in the number of cabins being built, seeing a little bit of a leveling off from COVID of the average nightly rate. But even with that, this market is well above the general market for short-term rentals across the country. Most short-term rental tourism specific markets are not going to drive these kind of numbers. So while this is your average nightly rate, that includes 1 bedroom, 1 bath, little small cabins and big cabins, but you'll see them from $200 a night all the way up to $4,000 or $5,000 a night, depending on the accommodation. And do have some pretty incredible ones being built out there that should continue to drive that market. You'll see the average occupancy. That's those percentages there on the right side. You'll see that the average occupancy is pretty substantial. Most markets are not going to support 50 to 60%. That's pretty typical, or pretty pretty standard is that 50% range. They're not going to support these 65, 68% occupancy rates. And again, it's coming down a little bit because the market's balancing. There's a lot of cabins being built, and so there's not you are seeing that gap close a little bit in the market share. So one of our goals is to not overbuild. We don't want to go build. We could build 30 cabins on our place, but we don't want to do that because I don't know that the demand is there for that. But we do want to do something that's unique, that's going to stand out against your typical cabins. So that's the general breakdown of those statistics there.
Let me just add a point here as well, that what's unique about this property and what will keep the occupancy rates up for us and the average night rentals is the synergy that occurs between all of these venues. When you have a wedding party come in, they're going to be wanting to use cabins, which is over and above what people would use just to come out to see the beautiful scenery. So the RV park can be a complement to that. The cabins can be a complement to that. It's just going to kind of all feed upon one another to kind of bring a nice experience and have a lot of variety for people. Anything else you would add to that, Coy?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of these cabins are one-offs. They're just folks that saw the market, they see some momentum, they have a friend that built a cabin out there and they're doing really well. I mean, a lot of these cabins they'll clear six figures in a year as far as their net returns. So pretty substantial investment just in and of themselves. But the beautiful thing that we have is we have a marketing generator here. Whenever we've got all these different points that are all bringing people to our property, that is going to drive eyeballs to the property. And so while we're not just one cabin trying to stand out amongst the 1,000, 1,500 cabins that are out there, we have all these different things that are bringing people out and getting their eyes and their feet on the property. And that word of mouth, that one-to-one conversation between you and your friend when you get home and you tell them about this great experience, and you say, we went and stayed in the RV park, you guys should come out here because they've got this shire over here, they've got this beautiful pond, they've got these, all of that will help tremendously. Just again, having that synergy between all the different pieces of our project.
There's also quite a boost here as well, in that Hochatown and those towns down there have not been incorporated in the past, but what they're now doing is engaging themselves in what's going on, and they're actually going to build the tourism even more. A lot of what's happened in this area, like Coy said, is one-off stuff, and it still has this many cabins going in. And right. There isn't a common marketing plan. There isn't a common theme or whatever that brings people to that, other than it's this area that is so popular. So with Hochatown incorporating, with new builds, there's several things, Coy, you've mentioned. There's how many $1 million casino going in down there?
There's a 9-figure casino build going on down in Hochatown. It's a massive project, and it's slated to be done next year. So they're substantial the way through that. So while this market is, maybe maxing out for what's there, it's about to get a lot more wide open. All of the land around that casino is being sold off. And all of that's developing up with commercial real estate. And I fully anticipate a big surge of energy in this market. And I don't think our timing could be any better.
Exactly. And as people still want space and they want the views, they're going to have to go a little bit out of Hochatown because it's a little bit crowded.
Busy. Yeah. You can equate it to Branson, Missouri. When it was starting off, we're kind of in that first 5 to 10 years of energy being put into this market that was a generally unknown market prior. 7 or 8 years ago, there was not much there. And look what's happened in just this short span. This is an enormous part of that is the opportunity zone thing that's happening in this particular area, which I'll leave that to Jay. But that all of that and the dollars being spent and the energy being pumped in lends itself to being an incredibly stout opportunity.
Excellent. Well, let's get into some of the numbers and talk about these different options. So we've opened up this syndication. It is available. It's open now. We're offering an 8% preferred return to investors. Now, that won't pay out immediately, but it will accrue. Because this is a development project, we're going to need to make sure that we are cash flowing and we have things up and running and we've got the development done. As you saw, Coy mentioned there's a lot of infrastructure to go into this. That'll be part of that first phase. And we're looking to have a 18% internal rate of return over the 5 years and near a 2x multiple in 5 years. Again, very conservative here, and a 2.2 and 7. And we actually have done some modeling that shows even better, but we're going to estimate low and over deliver. So it is a 70-30 split. Many deals that I've seen going on today are 60-40. But we're giving 70% to the Willows investors and only 30% to the general partnership. And so we only get that after you've made your money because of the preferred return. So we're looking to make this a very safe investment as possible for the investors. It is only open to accredited investors, which means though we can advertise this, you will need to be verified as an accredited investor before we can accept your funds. And I'll give you links to that here in just a short term, in a few minutes. We're looking for a $50,000 minimum investment, which is pretty standard. We want to make sure that we can get in as many people as we can. Now, we have overall the objectives here is to raise $3.25 million, or again, accredited investors only. We are waiting to get 7.7 in commitment before we take over the deal, because what that will do is allow us to buy the property from the existing LLC and put it into the syndication and have the money to put in the infrastructure and get through that phase one where we'll have cash flow being able to support the value of the property. We're expecting a 5 to 7 year hold. It'll take about 3 years to develop this. So distributions won't start until about the third year, but we will begin construction immediately. Now, at the moment, we're not looking at bank financing because the interest rates are so high and the banks are being really tight. They found themselves when some assets of their portfolios went down, many banks have not had the cash that's required for them to make the loans that they have. And so they're just not lending money at all. And if they are, they're charging 9-10% or higher. So we figured, well, let's just give our investors that preferred return, and we'll always be open to refinancing when it makes sense. And by the time we have some cash flow, that'll increase our net operating income. It'll make our terms for borrowing money even better. So that's kind of the nutshell of this. As Coy mentioned, this property actually sits in an opportunity zone. And while not a lot of people understand what that means, I'll give you just a quick, brief summary of that. If capital gains from an investor are invested through what we call a qualified opportunity zone fund, instead of directly into this syndication, you have to come through a separate fund. Then after 10 years, it is a 10-year commitment, you can realize a 100% step up in basis on all the gains that you make with that money through the fund. Now, you can still get distributions. Whatever distributions you do take will be still taxable. But if you leave the funds, your distributions in the fund, that just grows your equity share inside the fund itself. There's other things that are benefits there and how they operate. And we can certainly have that discussion if you have capital gains that you would like to deploy. It still has a 180-day window, much like 1031 exchanges. Reach out to me if you have any questions about that. I have the Opportunity Zone Fund already created. It's open. It's ready to take funds for those that have capital gains that they have experienced. This is not a 1031 exchange. I can get into that when you give me a call. They are very different. The opportunity zones are so much better that 1031s are going by the wayside, as are Delaware statutory trusts. I've already had a webinar where we discussed the three of those things with an attorney, and that webinar is also available upon request. So just keep that in mind and give me a call, and we'll see what's the right thing for you to do or help you decide that yourself. So the way to invest here is to do your own due diligence, and what we have Rebecca is going to drop into the chat the links to our data room and a few other things that we have available for you. So make sure you grab those. And if you forget to get them or you're having difficulty with your computer or whatever, simply reach out to investing at South Silver Group or me personally at Jay at South Silver Group. And we'll make sure you get those links and you can even share those. Again, everybody that invests will have to be third-party accredited. And within the offering documents, I go to lengthy description as to different ways that you can be third-party accredited. We provide that service as well through our own link, which is through a company called Parallel Markets. And Rebecca will drop that in there as well. So this way, we don't have to see all of your personal financials. Basically, in summary, an accredited investor is someone who either has $200,000 a year in annual income and can show that on their tax statements, or and that's 2 years in a row, or you have a net worth of $1 million, not including your primary residence. Again, we as the team itself, we don't get into certifying you. We have to have a third party do that. NAV Consulting, who is our administrator on this project, can provide that. Parallel Markets can provide that. Your CPA can provide that. And an attorney can provide that. But the simplest thing to do is to go to Parallel Markets, the link that we just put in there. And what's nice about that is once you've got your information in there, that verification only lasts 90 days by law in most cases. And so you'll need to keep that current. And if you have an account with Parallel Markets, all you simply have to do is update it with a few documents to keep it current. So we've tried to make that as seamless as possible. So to look at the due diligence, look at the data room that Rebecca put in there, and you can see all of the legal documents. We'll be adding more documentation up there over time, and you can do your own due diligence. Once you decide that you are ready to invest, then you send an email to investing at South Silver Group, which she also put in the link in the chat. And that will be the means by which you request a DocuSign document. We have some pre-filled templates. We've tried to, again, make this as seamless as possible. And so you'll get a DocuSign from us that you simply fill out according to your investment source. And you get that back to us, and it goes through the different people that have to sign it. And there will be documents that you need to upload with that, and you can upload them straight into the DocuSign. So if you read the subscription booklet that is available in the data room, and when you get that by request through investing at South Silver Group, you'll see all the different kinds of documents that you might have to provide. It could be your driver's license, it could be a passport, it could be whatever else is in the category of how you're investing your funds. To that point, then, if you're investing through a custodial account like an IRA or a self-directed 401k, then there will need to be at least a third signature on there as well, if not also your spouse. And so we'll need to know that information when you request the subscription documents to be signed, the DocuSigns. You'll need to let us know who those people are so that we can include them in the circulation of the DocuSign document. We've tried to make this as digital as possible so that you don't have to scan anything more than the extra documents that you have to attach. And this way it'll get to everybody that has to approve it. And you'll have to attach your third party, your letter of verification that you're an accredited investor. And again, whatever source you get that from doesn't matter to us, but we do provide that through Parallel Marketing. So you can get that certificate and then just supply that with your DocuSign. So that's a lot to swallow. It's a little bit different procedure than maybe you're used to when you've got a pen and a pencil and a piece of paper to fill this kind of stuff. But we're really trying to cut down on the ping pong that happens when an investor is trying to get subscribed. So we've tried to lay out that information as clearly as possible. And it's all in the beginning of the subscription booklet. So take a look at what you can through the data room. Get back with us through investing at southsilvergroup.com. We'll get you the DocuSign, and then Rebecca will be there to help you. I will be there to help you. reach out to myself or anybody else on the Willows team, and we can answer your questions and get you the information you need to make a good decision. Anybody else in the team have anything to say? And then we'll open up to question and answer as well.
Just
Good.
a
Go ahead.
quick mention. I included, Jay, your Calendly link if anyone has not had a chance to set up a time to talk with you directly, or if they'd prefer to do that following this webinar. Feel free to use that link to schedule a time for a one-on-one with Jay.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Let me look through my notes here. I think we've covered all those big points. I did talk about the off-ramps if we sell early. Very good. All right, let's open it up to Q&A. Does anybody in the audience have a question? Brett, Daryl, Jeremy, anybody? You'll have to unmute yourselves. Just let us know if you've got any questions.
I'm just curious. I know, Coy, what your favorite feature of this is going to be. Michael, what are you most looking forward to seeing come to life on this property?
Well, yeah, I believe that the RV park is probably my favorite, but the Shire thing does have a certain mystique about it that I'm looking forward to seeing. That the spot that it's going in is incredible, and it's going to be really neat. But I'm also a big cyclist, and we we haven't really touched on it because it's just coming to life. But the Walmart family, as well as the Arkansas state government, has come together to create another 1,500-mile hiking and biking trail through the Comanche Mountain Range, which is right in our backyard. And so there's going to be a lot of infrastructure. I mean, they actually built a similar, much smaller operation in Arkansas around Bentonville, I believe, is where the hometown of Walmart is, and that's where they started. And so that town is on the map much more for the hiking and biking and mountain bike riding that they have. And it's probably only just a couple of 100 miles worth of trails. We're talking about 1,500 miles worth of trails. So I'm really excited about that too. A lot of things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have friends that lived in Little Rock for a while, and one of them was an avid mountain biker. So I know when she comes back from deployment in Germany, she's going to be thrilled to have another place to go with fresh trails. So that'll be awesome.
Oh yeah.
And Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, I might just add a couple of other points. We haven't even discussed what we can do for seasonal attractions, Christmas light walks, and there's so much more that we plan to add to this park. But we've wanted to model it out so that it's profitable at the level that we've documented it here, and then we'll just be adding more and more revenue streams as we go along. So there's a whole lot of upside here to be realized.
Yeah, and to that point, Jay, I was just going to ask you about how many hours would you estimate you and Michael and Coy have spent on the pro forma and modeling this out, just if you had to put a ballpark on it.
Ooh.
How about months?
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that.
It's not an easy project.
What would you say was the most important part of the model that you wanted to focus on from an investor perspective to give people insight and clarity into what the operations look like?
Well, I think some of the more challenging things was making sure that we weren't missing anything in the infrastructure and missing anything in the expenses. We really haggled a lot over what it would take to run this park, what it would take as employees, what it would take as extra expenses. We do have the benefit that we don't have any permitting that we have to worry about, but we are not going to be those people, that guy that cuts corners and makes things cheap. We are not going to be doing that, yet we're going to be very frugal in how we utilize our time and our resources going forward. And because of Coy and Michael's experience and Christian's experience in the building industry, I think we are really well positioned to hit our mark.
Yeah, I was going to say with the diversity of projects going on here, Coy, I think you would agree that the team that you have around you is the critical component to success here. But is there anything else you want to speak to from a development strategy perspective that would lend some insight into your excitement or vision for this project?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the primary thing, and this is kind of shifted over time as well, we really want to mitigate or minimize operational risk. And so we have built this model to be as limited as possible on how many people it takes to run it. Whenever you have something that's going to require 30 or 40 people to be around the property and whatever, like that's a risk that I think we can avoid here. So primarily, we're looking at somebody who can manage the RV park. It's really about marketing and like online presence, and a lot of that's automated through booking softwares or management softwares for the campgrounds, for the cabins, for the Shire. All that can be more or less automated and managed remotely, and so we're not going to have on site people any more than we have to. Just maintenance and maintenance and upkeep and those sort of things. Those are going to be our primary hires, and then we have a couple of folks that we're keeping really close tabs on, not just for being an on-site manager. That's a big deal. We have to have the right person there who can not only stand their ground and be that person who can run this thing efficiently, but is also a really sweet person that's welcoming. And we've got a couple of really good folks in mind that we've been working towards getting them involved for a while now, and they're sort of buying their time until we get to that point. But the other thing that's really exciting is our superintendent, that we actually had a conversation with him yesterday, a gentleman that we are looking to employ out there as our primary eyes on site for overseeing the building and construction. He has built some phenomenal things out there in Hochtown. Namely, he built first time I took Christian out to Hochtown, we ended up going out to, maybe the second time, we went to go see this castle treehouse. It is unbelievable. It's a 3-story, I would probably say 1,400 square foot castle that's on a 20-foot high platform. And Johnny built this thing. He's incredible.
That's
I would
great.
like to just add to everybody else listening that the Great House family and Tri-Water Capital has been working and developing relationships with contractors in the cities and everything else for the last almost 3 years. So we are not going to be short on contractor support. We already have them lined up. We've already got verbal agreements from them. And we already know the people that can rent us equipment. We know where to get the sources of stone and sand and everything else. So it's really kind of exciting.
That's great. And I like that you bring that up. Now that you have all your contractors covered, what would you say is the maybe one or two of the primary risks that you have identified from a business analysis perspective or operations, and how you guys plan to mitigate those risks? From Jay or Coy, whichever of you wants to jump in.
Go ahead, Coy.
That's a great question. There are some certain unknowns as far as the topography, and we need to make sure we have the right folks out there for just engineering's sake. Just making sure we have proper, watershed and obviously structural integrity. But we do have architects and engineers in our back pocket that we're planning on employing to help us develop this and design this to where it's not just, these are not going to be chicken scratch cabins. People build those in Hochtown. I say that because that's kind of the paradigm that I've seen happen. It's the Wild West in a lot of Hochtown. A lot of guys and a lot of people, they'll slap a badge on their shirt and they're a general contractor.
Lick it and stick it, yeah.
and it ultimately turns into, haphazard work at best. Sometimes, I mean, there's a lot that are great, and they look great. A lot of them look great, but they are just really rough workmanship.
Not built to last either, I'm sure.
Yeah, so we're looking for, honestly, Johnny builds stuff to last, and we have a direct building experience with him. He worked on a project out in New Mexico for us that was very successful, and I've seen his work up close.
Right. I've actually been up to the park a couple of times myself. We toured Johnny's work, and I was very impressed.
Very good. That's awesome. And then Jay, just if you could speak to a little bit here with this particular type of syndication, what would you say this deal is best for in terms of investors, and maybe not a good fit for other investors? Can you speak to that a little bit? Who is this best for? Who is it not best for?
That's a great question. So because this is a development project, if somebody is depending on cash flow immediately, this is not going to be the right investment for you. This is going to have a 2.5-year delay before you start to get distributions. It's going to take us another 6 months to a year to catch up your preferred return. So this is the long haul. And what we're looking for here is a strong value add type of situation. This is not a yield play. This is not your multifamily deal. This has got lots of different revenue streams. It's a business as much as it is a real estate investment. And it's that business. I mean, even a multifamily is a business. You're generating revenue and holding people to payments and everything else and expenses. But this has got a lot of business attached to it at first. And once it's all stabilized, it's all developed, it'll become more like a rental place, short-term mostly. There is some, like we mentioned, long-term RV spot in some cases, but this is going to be, it also has some seasonal effects to it. So, but we are very convinced that we are going to be able to deliver what we've said in our pitch deck here today. And we believe there's a whole lot more upside to it. But that said, it's not for the cash flow investor. Now, for those that are hoping to take advantage of the Treasury Department's benefit of opportunity zones, which I'd be happy to explain to people, that is a 10-year hold for your investment. Now, that doesn't mean you won't get distributions in the meantime, but people have to understand that. But the benefits of saving 35% of your money alone because of the tax bracket you might be in from capital gains, we need to talk. So give me a call on that.
My favorite part about opportunity zones is those who need them don't need any convincing, and those who don't need them have no business learning about it. So, but I think from a hold perspective, understanding the long-term vision of this property is a critical component. But I think it also is attractive to investors who want to put their money into something that they can really touch and see and feel with their own eyes and hands. And being close to DFW myself, I'd love to have a place that I can go watch my money grow type of thing. So that's really attractive. And right now, some of those faster cash flowing investment opportunities have a lot of risk attached to them, with interest rates being what they are and exit strategies having to be stretched out. So a project like this, where we can see the future and kind of forecast demand in this way, I think is a massive incentive for investors who want to tuck their money away in a safer long-term investment, but also see some really, really exciting returns. So
yeah, we're pretty excited about the alternative investment classes like recreational real estate. That's really what South Silver Group is focused on. And so the other big difference here is that this is a syndication, so it could sell in 5-7 years, whatever. And an opportunity zone fund is a 10-year commitment. So that's a big difference as well. But we certainly need to talk if that's something that somebody can be interested in. As a fund manager of the Opportunity Zone Fund, whatever does sell in less than 10 years, I can reinvest so that your money continues to grow. It's not like, oh no, now what do I do? We don't own the park anymore. And as a fund manager, I can invest in more than one thing. I can invest in more than an RV park, etc. So let's just talk if you've got capital gains that you want to figure out how to save money on.
Yep. So next steps, if anyone is interested in learning more or setting up a time to chat with Jay directly, make sure to grab those links from the chat before you go. But with that, I think that's everything from my end.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We thank you especially to our guests for hanging in there with us for this long webinar, but we feel like we really needed to get the information out there for you. And so we look forward to talking to you. Daryl, do you have a question?
No, just wanted to thank you very much. It was very interesting, and I look forward to doing some going to the RV park and doing a little camping up there sometime soon.
Well, we'd love to have you. Very good. All right. Anybody else have a last minute comment?
Well, thanks, guys.
Well, thank
Have a great
you.
night.
You too. Thank you. All right. Good night, everybody.